Lydia Ko captured the gold medal in women's golf at the 2024 Paris Olympics, and with that incredible feat, she officially met the requirements for entry into the LPGA Hall of Fame. And what makes this moment even more meaningful is the fact that this Hall of Fame isn't just any institution. It's the LPGA's super elite shrine, tucked away in Augusta, Georgia. Honestly, the LPGA Hall of Fame is probably the closest thing golf has to a secret society, and that's not an exaggeration. If you ask me why, I'd say it's because only 5 players have managed to qualify for induction in the past 2 decades. That's how rare it is. So, Lydia Ko didn't just become part of women's golf royalty. She basically ascended to the Mount Olympus of the sport. That's a ridiculously elite accomplishment. But it does raise a pretty important question. Should the LPGA Hall of Fame really be this exclusive? In this video, we'll explore why getting into this Hall of Fame is so difficult and consider how it might be time for the LPGA to lower some of the hurdles so that more players who've dedicated their lives to the game get the recognition they truly deserve. Most fans of the LPGA Tour are somewhat aware of the brutally strict requirements needed to enter the Hall of Fame, but it only really becomes a hot topic when a player actually manages to qualify, because it happens so rarely that it feels like a once-in-a-generation event. So, why does it shake the earth every time a woman golfer finally gets her name into the LPGA Hall of Fame? Well, because the requirements are downright legendary. Let's start with the number 27. That's the magic number of points a player must rack up during her LPGA Tour career to be inducted. Unlike other halls of fame that use voting systems, the LPGA takes a different route. It uses a points-based system. And here's how it works. You earn 1 point for every standard LPGA Tour win, 2 points for a major championship, 1 point for winning the Bear Trophy, which goes to the player with the lowest scoring average in a season, 1 point for being the Rolex Player of the Year, and more recently, 1 point for winning Olympic gold. At first glance, you might think, hey, 27 tournament wins should do it, right? But not so fast. The system demands that players must have at least one of these 3, a major title, a Bear Trophy, or a Player of the Year award. So just winning 27 regular tournaments? Nope, that won't cut it. We'll dive deeper into how difficult it is to actually reach that 27-point threshold in today's game. But for now, here's a question. What if a player retires before reaching 27 points? Is there still hope? Well, technically yes, but it's not easy. A small number of individuals have been inducted as honorary members over the years. This includes the entertainer and tournament host Dinah Shore in 1994 and 8 of the LPGA's original 13 co-founders in 2022. So if you don't earn enough points as a player, another route might be to host a tournament, or better yet, invent time travel, go back 75 years, and become the 14th co-founder of the LPGA. Now, it might seem harsh to judge the system in a vacuum, so let's compare it to the World Golf Hall of Fame, which is widely seen as far more inclusive. The World Golf Hall of Fame, since it was founded in 1974, has continually evolved. Over time, it's adapted to the modern landscape of the sport and has made room for non-players who've made major contributions to the game. That's why every year, they induct both players and non-players. For players, regardless of gender, the criteria are far more forgiving. You only need 15 wins on an approved professional tour or 2 major wins. Plus, you have to be at least 45 years old, so you're clearly past your prime. It's still an exclusive club, but not impossible. And unlike the LPGA, the World Golf Hall of Fame uses a votes-based system. So after a player meets the on-course achievements, they need to be approved by a committee. Here's the twist. Because of this more inclusive structure, there are legendary women golfers in the World Golf Hall of Fame who are not in the LPGA Hall of Fame and might never get there. Take Laura Davies, for example. She's widely regarded as the GOAT of modern British women's golf and was one of the brightest stars on the LPGA Tour in the 1990s. She won 20 LPGA events, including 4 majors, and even snagged the Player of the Year award in 1996. That earned her a total of 25 points, just 2 shy of the magical 27. She was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2015, but the LPGA Hall? Still locked out. And she's not alone. Names like Beverly Hansen, Susie Burning, Jan Stevenson, Sandra Palmer, Hollis Stacy, and Meg Mallon are all legends in their own right. Each of them has secured a permanent place in the World Golf Hall of Fame, but the LPGA Hall of Fame continues to keep its gates closed to them. But if there's one name that sparks the most controversy over being left out of the LPGA Hall of Fame, it has to be Jane Blalock. She was a dominant force in the 1970s and early 1980s, winning 27 times on the LPGA Tour. So she hit that magic number, right? Technically, no. She never won a VAR trophy, was never Player of the Year, and never officially won a major. Or did she? In 1972, Blalock won the inaugural Dinah Shore Colgate Winners' Circle, which is now known as the Chevron Championship, one of the 5 LPGA majors today. But back then, it wasn't classified as a major. It only received that status in 1983. So despite having the resume, she remains shut out. Let's now dive deeper into how the LPGA Hall of Fame compares to other institutions, and why the differences feel so staggering. To truly grasp how rigid the LPGA system is, you need to look at the World Golf Hall of Fame for contrast. Founded in 1974, it has steadily evolved to accommodate not just great players, but also legendary contributors to the sport. Think broadcasters, architects, and even club makers. In other words, it recognizes greatness across the entire golf ecosystem. And here's the kicker, its qualification system is significantly more forgiving. To be considered as a player, you need just 15 wins on an approved professional tour or 2 major championship victories. That's it. You also need to be at least 45 years old or retired from active competition for 5 years before you're eligible. That gives legends ample time to build their resume without being boxed out by biological constraints or shortened careers. While it still uses a voting process, meaning a committee of experts ultimately determines induction, it's miles more accessible than the LPGA's rigid point system. This is why many legendary female golfers are enshrined in the World Golf Hall of Fame, but remain excluded from the LPGA's list. The reason? Their career achievements, while extraordinary, don't align with the LPGA's rigid points formula. It's a system that can overlook a player with over 24 wins or multiple major titles, simply because they didn't check off a very specific box. And even if they helped shape the game or drew global attention to women's golf, none of that counts. The result? A growing list of icons who've been celebrated globally, but still wait outside the gates of their own tour's highest honor. Among the legends who lifted the LPGA into the global spotlight, Betsy King carved a legacy of her own. Turning professional in 1977, she endured a tough start, going winless in her first 7 seasons. But once the floodgates opened in 1984, they stayed wide open. She won 6 majors and claimed 34 LPGA Tour victories. Her dominance during the late 1980s and early 1990s made her one of the most consistent and mentally tough players in the game. But Betsy King's legacy stretches beyond the fairways. Off the course, she became a role model through her philanthropic efforts, championing causes from clean water initiatives to education. Betsy King wasn't just about winning. She was about impact. Her story is a powerful reminder of why the LPGA Hall of Fame should evolve to reflect not just cold criteria, but also broader contributions to the sport. If institutions like the World Golf Hall of Fame can embrace that nuance, why can't the LPGA? So, how rare is LPGA Hall of Fame status, really? Let's put it this way. As of 2025, only 35 players have ever been inducted. That's it. Over 70 years of LPGA history, and only 35 names on that list. To put that in perspective, the Baseball Hall of Fame has over 340 inductees, and even the World Golf Hall of Fame has nearly 170 members across various categories. The LPGA Hall of Fame? It's one of the most exclusive clubs in all of sports by design. That exclusivity brings us to an important moment in the LPGA's recent history. In 2022, the LPGA made a surprising and widely praised announcement. They were inducting the tour's founders into the Hall of Fame, using a special honorary category. This was a long overdue move. Let's be clear, these were the women who created the tour from scratch in 1950. 13 trailblazers who drove themselves from city to city, set up their own events, promoted the sport, and essentially built the foundation of women's professional golf. Their names included Marlene Bauer-Hagg, Patty Berg, Betty Jameson, Babe Zaharias, and others. Shockingly, until 2022, only 6 of the 13 founders had been inducted. The rest were shut out, not because they lacked impact, but because they didn't win enough events or earn enough points under the Hall's strict criteria. It was a classic case of rules ignoring legacy. By finally including all 13 founders, the LPGA took a huge step toward honoring its own roots. But the moment also highlighted something bigger. The system isn't built to recognize influence. It's built purely on statistics. And that raises a deeper question. Should greatness always be reduced to numbers? Let's talk about Lydia Ko. As of 2024, Ko has 20 LPGA Tour wins, 2 major championships, and she's won both the Player of the Year and the Vare Trophy twice. She also became the youngest world number 1 in the history of professional golf at just 17 years old. Yet despite all this, Lydia Ko only secured her Hall of Fame status recently, when she crossed the 27-point threshold by winning the 2024 Hilton Grand Vacations Tournament of Champions. That single victory pushed her over the edge. If she had lost, she would have still been outside the Hall, even with a resume that rivals some of the greatest athletes in any sport. It's a system that leaves very little room for nuance, and no room for context. For example, players from different eras face different challenges. In the 1950s and 60s, the LPGA Tour didn't even offer as many events each season. The prize money was low, media coverage was sparse, and sponsorships were hard to come by. Players often worked side jobs just to keep going. How can you compare a player from that time to someone competing today with modern equipment, performance coaches, and year-round training? That's the flaw. The LPGA Hall of Fame is essentially a math equation. But greatness in sport? It's a story, a legacy, an impact. Even Tiger Woods once said that greatness isn't just about numbers. It's about how a player changes the game, makes people watch, inspires the next generation. So maybe it's time for the LPGA Hall of Fame to evolve again, to reflect not just who won the most, but who meant the most. Because at the end of the day, greatness isn't always easy to measure, but it's easy to feel. And maybe that's the real story here. The LPGA Hall of Fame isn't just a list of names etched into history. It's a mirror, a reflection of how far women's golf has come and how far it still has to go. From the fearless founders who built a tour out of grit and vision, to the legends who redefined what excellence looked like, to modern stars like Lydia Ko, navigating a system that often asks for more than just brilliance. The Hall of Fame tells us who made it. But the real magic lies in the stories behind those names, and in the ones still being written. Because in the end, greatness in golf, like greatness in life, isn't just about winning. It's about the courage to show up, stand out, and change the game. And that's something no point system can ever fully capture. If this story moved you, share it with someone who loves the game. Subscribe for more deep dives like this, and hit that like button to help us keep telling the stories that matter. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.